Welcome back to the Daily Edge here with my brothers TJ and Todd. And today we're going to talk about marketing. I think there's a lot there. Marketing has evolved pretty significantly over the years. I think back to when we were kids, we would get magazines and you'd go through and kind of circle for Christmas. What are the things you liked? But you really had to struggle to find anything that you wanted, or you saw the commercials, right? They put the commercials up and they had to pay for space. Like, oh, I like that toy. But it was really, I think you had to put a lot more effort in as the buyer in order to make stuff happen. Today, that's transitioned into a whole new thing where whatever we're talking about now would likely show up on our phone on the way home. So want to talk today about marketing, consumerism, contentment. You know, we talk a lot about the brain and how things now are triggered to, feed us exactly what we want because people are so smart. So marketing in general, TJ, you live in this world. You probably know it better than all of us. How would you I don't know whether you want to go back and take us through maybe the journey of how it's morphed or go somewhere else with it, but why don't you jump in?
It's really interesting. I think what I've seen over the last couple of years is that I've seen two different forks in the road. One fork in the road. And honestly, I think you guys can speak to this because I think it speaks a little bit to sales, right? When you talk about sales in specific, a lot of times, at least in my, and maybe this is through the marketing lens, I see two types of salespeople. I see the guy that walks in the meeting and he wants a gun with 1,000 bullets in it. And by golly, he's going to have the bullet that person in the room wants, versus the guy who's got one bullet and he's going to make you, and this is this is metaphor, but that's the one that's going to solve the problem. And I think, those are the two forks that I've seen from a marketing perspective. You have your brands of the world where, growing up, it was so difficult to bring a brand to life because of the hurdles you were talking about. We were talking about traditional media, print media. There's a lot more cost to it. It costs, and that was the economics back then, right? You were paying for spaces in newspapers. You were paying for spaces in magazines. And it's crazy to see that even exists today. You still see some of these small local publications hanging on by a thread, selling this section in their magazine because the person doing the advertising believes that small niche demographic is the one that they want to engage with. But, it used to be so difficult to bring a brand to life. I think that people were much more cognizant of what they did around that, right? They spent a lot more time thinking about their target demographic. They spent a lot more time thinking about the message. They spent a lot more time curating that because it was hard to shift course. Once you decided what your vision was going to be and what your message was going to be to your consumer, and you put it out via those traditional mediums, you couldn't shift course overnight. It may be weeks, it may be months until that publication came out again, or till your ad ran again on whatever program that it was associated with, or whatever buy you did. With the cable company. Nowadays, you have the ability to change it at the drop of a hat. And so
do you feel like the demographics, it's like back in the day, someone would they were advertising to kids, they would put their commercials in the middle of cartoons.
Sure.
Right? So even back then they were marketing, they had an ideal client. And so they were marketing, but if you marketed during Wheel of Fortune, you're probably getting, a lot of different. You think it's easier now to market to certain segments versus what it used to be?
I think it's easier and harder. Harder in the sense that back then it was you didn't have a whole lot of options. You had billboards, you had print media, and you had television.
Yeah.
And shout out John Kuhn, did a great documentary on this, but when we were younger, you weren't allowed to advertise to kids via cartoons. The only reason that changed is if you remember, like watching He-Man, there was always at the very end like a PSA, right? And when Reagan came into power, as president, they added those PSAs to the end of these cartoons, and then that, for whatever reason, and the mechanics are in John's video, so go search it up, allowed people to start advertising via Sunday morning cartoons or Saturday morning cartoons or whatever. So I think it's easier in that way because you had less choices to make, and you knew that whatever you ended up tackling had X number of eyes and probably more. Now that it's so fractured, but the tools are so much more powerful as it relates to finding that micro niche.
Do you feel like this has caused us to want more? Like, I feel like I struggle with contentment. I think most people do. Do you feel like in any way this has put I'm sure people have struggled with contentment for hundreds of years. Do you feel like it's poured gasoline on the fire to some extent?
Oh, and not just in consumer products, but everything, right? I mean, we've talked to prior episodes about social media and YouTube. You don't have to just watch some movie that was made for everybody. You can find this thing that is very specifically not only tailored to the content you want to watch, but in today's micro content creation economy, not only is it but it's probably presented in the way that's most appealing to you. And then that's the same way, when it comes to products. I mean, I was talking about those two paths earlier in terms of marketing. That's one of the paths as it related to that salesman with all the bullets in the chamber. You have these companies that go out that have their strengths are in manufacturing and logistics, right? And they don't care about a brand per se, because it's such a fleeting thing, right? They lead on price. But essentially what they're doing is they're looking at the demographic and working backwards. Let's make what this particular person wants. Let's solve these problems, or let's copy what somebody else did and do it cheaper, because there are these platforms like Amazon that can get in front of you in a real effortless way, as long as you know how to manipulate the algorithm. But what we're seeing though is that those brands don't last long, right? So you'll see a brand come in, and I think that's what China has realized over the years, being the strongest in that category, is that they have to spend some time on that, because for whatever reason, we're drawn towards brand stories. And I think a lot of that has to do with feeling like you're part of a community. And so if a product is out there and it's just winning on features and functionality and value, it's the person that comes with the next person in line with the better value is going to win.
I want to go down a rabbit hole. A few weeks ago, we talked about the social media in Australia being banned for kids under the age of 16 because it's not good for them. Why would we not ban something like this? Like, if personalized advertising to the things that we desire most, and it's going to make us spend money we don't have and desire things we don't need, why would we not control that more? What do you think, Todd? You seem like you got something you want to say.
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, again, we're in a world where I just looked on my Eternize website, and I didn't realize this came inherent with Shopify and ShopPay. But if you want to buy this $150 cross in 4 installments of $37, you can. Like, I don't think you have to look far to consumer spending and the debt levels and I think a lot of that is people are putting advertisements. You're seeing everywhere you look, there's something that you have to have. And I think marketing has gotten super dishonest. Honestly, I think to answer your question, that's where I would start. I would not necessarily ban, because I think there are things that people don't know that they need or that could really improve someone's life. I'll use this as an example, right? You're telling me I can't market this to people, and some people may say that's not the case, but I would say it is. So like, I think it's okay, but I think with AI, when you guys talked about how hard it was and maybe how AI can contribute to controlling and being the decision maker of who to ban and not to ban based on age, right? Could AI help us look into the authenticity of ads? And because I think that's what happens is they put these products in a light to which you feel like you have to have it. They tell you the best possible story, And rarely do you ever get a product that fully lives up to, because in order to compete in the noise today, and I'm living this right now, in order to compete in the noise today, you better be ready to have a product that's going to transform someone's life. People aren't looking for incremental fixes, and if they are, they're going to pay a few dollars for it. I mean, certainly there's a demographic and whatever, but I feel like in order to compete in today's marketing world where everyone is like drowning in this stuff, you have to have some sort of powerful position statement, and I think it incentivizes companies to stretch the truth of the impact of what they're actually going to deliver to consumers. And then I think people overbuy and overspend. And so if I were to regulate it, I would look at that. I would look at potentially the honesty and the authenticity of the advertising and start there.
What do you guys think? I just looked this up. 2 questions. First, what do you think digital ad, what's the highest, what percentage do you think they spend on digital ads and social media?
What do you mean?
So global spending for social media advertising.
Trillions of dollars.
Well, it says it's projected in the US around 276 billion. That amount represents roughly 30% of all digital ad spend worldwide.
Yeah, so $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
It's up 150% since 2019. So like you go back to like that social media, it knows what you like. It knows what you're clicking on. It knows everything about you. And you're in the doom scroll and you're going by. I wonder how many ads you go by every minute.
Well, but they're getting more creative and it's shifting. You know, we just did the first, I've mentioned it numerous times on the podcast. We work with the largest retailer in the world, and we just did their very first influencer campaign in our category. So that involved working with a third party to engage influencers that we believe serve our target. And they've created content, and it runs for a particular time through a particular mechanism on one of the social media platforms for 3 to 4 weeks. Right. So now the biggest retailers in the world are exploring utilizing that. And you're seeing that, I mean, you look at how a lot of the influencers get treated in terms of the extras that they get, the exposure they get, like all of the, we'll use run influencers, right? They get into all the races they want to get into. They get free gear, they get free shoes. Some of them have contracts. And of course, every single one of them tries to maintain some semblance of being objective. Like they start all their videos with, nobody gets a chance to see my footage before you do. It's like, dude, it's really hard to not be biased towards a shoe company when you get 4 pairs of shoes in the mail for free every single month. You know what I mean? But like we're getting marketed to in a lot of instances through consuming content and we don't even know it. Sometimes it's obvious, right? And there have been rules enacted over the last decade or half a decade where influencers are required to hashtag their posts in particular manners so that that it's an ad. But in a lot of instances, that's much more subtle, for sure.
They did this as pharmaceuticals, right? Pharmaceutical drugs, they had to regulate. They had to start telling you like all the side effects, like, hey, this can lower your blood pressure, but by the way, you probably, it can cause death and,
person running on the sand
can cause heart attacks and everything else. But hey, it'd help you with your blood pressure.
Sure.
I think that is, I think it whether it is not being authentic in terms of the reality of how it's going to impact your life or what it's going to look like. And that's very hard to determine. So that's where it gets super vague, or like you said, where it's disguised and people don't necessarily know it, or things aren't being fully disclosed. I think all of that. And then the fact that these algorithms and the extensive data they have about us, that you can just like pinpoint the
geofence stuff. I honestly think those are, I would agree with those, but I think the biggest thing is just the the lack of impulse control. It's no different than like if I see an M&M there, I'm gonna eat the M&M. It's just like it's having access to a drug. It's a drug and it feeds and there's never enough. And I think just having the access to it is hard to control impulses in that area. Just like it's hard to control impulses on social media. It's another one of those things that's highly targeted and highly focused on those parts of the brain that like, cause even when you buy something, like you're scrolling like, oh, that looks cool. I got this Christmas sweater with Santa with his mouth open and, I forget, it's like Twisted Elves or something. They've got all these things in on there. It looks so cool. And like, I want to get one of these and you get it. And it's like, it kind of looked like the Santa like actually came off of the shirt. And no, it was just I'm going to be able to wear it. Tipsy. Yeah. I'm going to be able to wear it like 3 times. Right. So there's part of that, that I just don't know if that is a good thing long term. And I think if we did some research and studies, it probably is one of the leading problems with overspending and just contentment in general.
Yeah, I think
it's too easy.
I think as technology's advanced, it's become way too easy to create Me Too products, and it's become and we can use things like scarcity to drive people towards buying something. Back in the day, if you wanted to go big on a product, you had to place a pretty massive order because lead times were just 9 months, 6 months. Today, you can spin things up much quicker depending on where it's coming from. Because we can shift direction so quickly. Again, if you made a product and you put out advertising via traditional media 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you couldn't change that the next day. You kind of had to see it through. Whereas, if tomorrow I come up with this crazy shirt idea, I can have marketing and everything out for my merch day of. And there are a lot of those sites out there today that you don't have to do anything. You just put a store up, they'll make it all for you. You take a cut of it and you market it to your people.
Drop ship.
Well, then the next day you can utilize, okay, I know that scarcity drives behavior, so I'm going to say there's only 100 of these. Well, you couldn't do that back in the day because your marketing was going to be out there for 6 more months. So you couldn't do it in that world. Today you can. And so we have the ability to push these other buttons. And then of course, with the advances in logistics and the Amazon problem, I mean, you remember, gosh, I can remember waiting for ordering computer parts, in high school. And, very, very rarely would you order something overnight because it was like $60 in shipping. But normally we just wait 6-7 days and it would finally get there. And now, like, I'll admit it, a lot of times I'm not buying something if it's not same day or next day. I just won't do it. 3 days.
I was trying to get something here for a thing we're doing in a couple of days, and it was, I think it's a Wednesday right now, and I was like, can't get it there till Saturday. I refused to buy it. I was so mad I couldn't get it in 2 days. You said it's Prime. Like, why can't I get it here in 2 days? I do want to spend some time on scarcity though, because I think there's a lot of different things. There's the fake scarcity. What about the true scarcity? Like, so I went into a store and I like to collect basketball cards. I did pull a Steph Curry 5 of 5 last night, which I'm pretty pumped about. But they're coming out with these new boxes. They're called Jumbo Topps Chrome basketball boxes, right? And you can't buy them. Like, you got to go online. They're over marketed. Any shop you go to, they're way overpriced. It's like you get in these things. Like you could use Taylor Swift concert tickets as a similar thing. But what about these companies that don't make abundance of the product? There is some scarcity to it. That seems to be a big trigger for me. There's not enough. Get it now. How does that impact you guys?
Pisses me off. I mean,
honestly, you couldn't get a PS5 retail for like a year and a half.
It's disingenuous as hell. Like, I think there are certain scenarios where there is a real, like with electronics, right? There was a point in time, I think it was during COVID, where, we were short on chips. And so there were, giant car lots full of cars. I think there are instances like that where there's something that's causing scarcity and is prohibiting you from buying whatever. But the manufactured scarcity, man, that's tough.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Here's the vicious cycle. You know why they do it? Because it works.
Absolutely.
And we buy it. And when they say like, hey, there's only 100, everybody goes and bum rushes. And, you know, you've got bots buying stuff on sites and whatever. And these like
Jordan shoes.
I mean, at the end of the day, it goes back to our ability to save ourselves. And unfortunately, we're not very good at that. We kind of just follow our instincts and our impulses, and it gets us in a lot of trouble. And, you know, you want to come down on the companies and be like, hey, what are you doing here, man? Like, and they're just like, look, I got quarterly profits to hit. I'm a public company. My board's telling me that I got to grow 10% or I'm going to be fired and not have a job. And so, yeah, I'm going to only, say we've got a 10,000 PlayStation 5s for the first 6 months. And then, you know,
they actually had adequate for the most part with the PlayStation 5s. What happened is the middleman went and bought them all up, which happens in, you know, people, it's their business is being the middleman. They will go buy hundreds of PlayStation 5s and resell them. So these resellers drive the price. And that drives me crazy. Like,
didn't when there was some regulation put in place, or at least some people some artists have regulated, because that happens a ton with ticket prices. They go in and they gouge them, and then they're
trying. So Taylor Swift was a good example where you had to present some type of I know Tara went through the process, but there was some type of verification process that you went through to determine that you lived geographically relatively close to the concert. And then once you passed that, then it was getting in queue and getting selected and all of these things. So there was like this geo-fencing thing for, you know, somebody in California couldn't buy Indiana Taylor Swift tickets. So there's that piece of the puzzle, but it was still a situation where somebody in Indiana was buying 5 or however many Indiana Taylor Swift tickets and selling a $350 ticket for $4,000.
The consoles have done a pretty good job. I know when the Switch 2 had come out, being that I was a member, I got a notification from Nintendo to where I could get in a pre-list. And then it was like 3 months later, and then there wasn't one available. So they're making sure you have accounts. I think the way PlayStation went about it is you had to have an account, you had to buy a game and a controller, and like you had to buy these packages. And so there was some authentication there where they tried their best to control some of that. But that's something that, Rolex built their brand on it and still does. So there is a very high-end echelon exclusivity, but it still drives me crazy.
Well, the entire LVMH umbrella brand that has all the luxury brands underneath it, it's all built off of that. You know, and
they don't advertise like that. That's the interesting part. Is those top. I've never got an ad, and I probably won't, for a Rolex. They're not trying to hit people because you can't even go in and buy one, even if you want to. You can't. Do you know you can't go buy a new Ferrari as your first car? I read this somewhere. It was like
you can, but you have to start at a certain level and work your way up there.
Well, the way I saw an ad, and you may be right, it said, no, you go in and say, I want to buy this Ferrari. They're like, well, you've never owned one before. You got to buy a used one first, and the used one's more expensive than the new one in order to then get a new one.
Yes, there is a process you have to go through to get to buy the higher level cars for sure. I know a couple people that have been through like the first few levels of that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's interesting. The sports card thing.
Wow.
And I know that a lot more of it, you know, like there's more that goes into cards today. Like you have a lot of the jersey cards where there's a piece of this. So they're spending a little bit more time in production potentially than just printing cards. But it's wild to me. And
these hobby boxes are going for $500 to $1,200 for a hobby box. So like I got into this and realized there's the hangers at Walmart that are $34, and those are just regular boxes. And then there's a mega box, which is also at Walmart or Meijer, and it's $78. Well, if you want to get the good cards, the inserts, you're going to a card shop, and if you can even get a hobby box, you're paying $200 to $600, and then these jumbo boxes are $1,200, and you can't even get your hands on them. It is wild, but a jumbo box has 3 guaranteed autographs, 6 parallels. I mean, so depending on where you want to play in the system, but it's and so recently, like, you know, there's Disney cards, Disney trading cards. I mean, Pokemon's been a huge one.
Sure.
You can pull a $100,000 Pokemon card out. So they're releasing new sets all the time. I'm fascinated that people are still buying like Pokemon cards. Like that's like the fact that they've kept that along. It's
Yeah.
It's similar to Fortnite. I don't know how Fortnite has stayed relevant. I know they partnered with every brand on the continent to do it, but it's impressive when you see a card company like that continue to reinvent themselves and release new sets all the time, and they just sell out and people freak out over it.
I wonder if the bottom falls out like it did with the video game market. There's a couple documentaries out there, and there was a lot of disingenuous behavior in the video game market. So there, and I think it was probably COVID-ish, the vintage video game market, like through the roof, like an unopened original Mario Duck Hunt game in the box
With the gun.
was like, one day it was trading for $300, the next day it was 30 grand. And what ended up happening was there was kind of some price fixing going on. So the company that was authenticating and grading them and the company that was auctioning them, and like they created this marketplace that wasn't real. And eventually the bottom fell out, and there were people that had spent tens of thousands of dollars on these games, and they ended up, because it's interesting. I mean, some of it is playing on our that particular market's playing on our desire for nostalgia. But I wonder what's going to happen with some of these things, because the card market has been like this over the last 50 years. There are some staples that have always been.
Topps just took basketball back over. They just got it back. It used to be Panini.
I mean, you think about when we were in high school and like the hoops sets.
NBA hoops
Shit's
is
worth
still there.
$20, the whole set. It's 40 years old now, or 35 years old, but it's not worth anything. Skybox, like they're not worth anything. And
Upper day. I mean, if you have certain cards, they are.
I think some of the best long-term, the ones that have sustained, realize two things is community and identity. And when they can play into those two things, like that's a lot of the Pokemon thing is that's a community for people.
Sure.
Like people go and play Pokemon all the time. And so when when that's a community for you, people are willing to pay for that. And I think the other thing is identity. A lot of people take their identity in the things that they have, material things, and people have identity in having a Rolex and having a Ferrari or having the one of one, whatever basketball card. And I think when you can, as toxic as it can be, they know that if you can start to give people an identity in the product you're selling them and also potentially a community, I mean, I think that's the double whammy, then they'll pay about anything for it.
Is there anything, someone posed this to me, that was an interesting question. When he first asked it to me, I'm like, of course not. But then I had to think about it. Is there anything that you've bought that isn't connected to your identity? Anything. If you're truly honest with yourself. Like,
I think I mean, I buy food. I would say food I eat a lot that I don't really connect to my identity.
At? Where do you get your food?
Fast food.
Well, clearly not.
I'd say most tangible things that last a while, there's definitely a connection there in some way, shape, or form.
And that's kind of where I landed, is like the car you drive, where you get your groceries, where you go out to eat, what kind of watch you wear, what brand or what level of watch, like what clothes you wear. If you think about it, everything you probably buy in mind has some tie to your identity. Not that it's all bad, but it's clearly identity, whether you want to agree to it or not.
Well, but like, is it?
I don't know.
I think
for me,
there's tied to your identity, meaning that you're potentially using it to elevate your perceived identity versus just like for instance, these sweats. Tara bought these for me. Like they're Viore, but like I don't care. They could be from Old Navy or wherever. It doesn't matter. I'm not using these to elevate people's perception of me. These shoes, again, they were kind of given for free. I'm not using that to change people's perception of me. Of course, they are running shoes, so that's tied to my identity. Versus like, I got out of a Tesla Model S, which could be perceived as a higher upper echelon car, to drive a Model Y because it was more. Because I mean, I drove.
But the fact that you drive a Tesla says a lot about who you are.
Sure, and I got the Tesla because I like technology, and that's that. But like prior to that, I drove Mom's old SUV, and prior to that, I drove a Hyundai.
Would you
for a
drive a
decade.
Ford Focus?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I don't know where identity begins and ends, but I would say for me, there's not a lot of identity to it. Like, I bought the Tesla purely for the self-driving features, like, and that it saves me time, and I can multitask on the road sometimes. Like, I will buy things that are more comfortable, or like I'll buy a sauna because I like the benefits, and if I can, afford that it is something that makes me feel better and healthier. I don't go around, there's nothing about me that has pride associated with having a sauna in my basement, or like, again, the Tesla thing. There's nothing about like I'm an owner of a Tesla. Like, I thought it was the weirdest thing when I bought a Tesla. There's this like thing, especially early on, because I had one pretty early on. Anyone else with a Tesla would give you the like, hey, hey, buddy, you're in my, and I'm just like, I don't know you. I'm not in your, I'm not in your circle.
Oh yeah.
But I have no, I'll shop at Kroger, I'll shop at Target, I'll shop at Walmart, I'll shop at Aldi for my groceries. Like, I don't know. I've never felt myself brand chasing. There are certain clothes that are higher quality, for example, and they're more comfortable, and I'll do it for that, but I don't know if that would be incorporated in identity.
I think anything that we do obviously portrays something to someone.
Yeah, of course.
It's a representation of who you are. So I think what you're saying is you don't put a lot of thought into that. You're like, look, I just do what I do because I'm so busy solving problems and off doing other things that all these other things are just very menial, and I'm just not focused on them. And so maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I don't.
Yeah, I think to your point,
it.
like, are people perceiving me differently based on what I have? Absolutely. Am I personally identifying with these things? Not necessarily.
Yeah, for me, I think I'd put more thought into other people's perception of like wearing a Boston jacket somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
What you wear to the Pacers
I'll not
game.
do that more often than not, because I don't want somebody to be like, there's this pretentious asshole who ran Boston. He thinks he's better than me. Like, I just happen to have one. I mean, I've run Boston 7 times, and I have 3 jackets because I don't want to have 7 jackets.
I've got 3 jackets, and I've only run it 3 times because I buy one every time. Because I don't know if it's going to be my last.
I ran it once, and I bought
an ego
it once.
purchase. Yeah.
This year is supposed to, like,
It's the same thing. Getting a medal for running you do the Disney,
really good.
You do the Disney race, and you walk around with all your medals from. Everyone wore them from Dopey. You had 17 medals on. Take the picture.
I think there is some pride.
What's coming back, did you say?
Boston this year is going back to embroidered jackets. So the last 2 years they have done screen printed jackets. Oh. And there was a lot of like backlash against them. And so they're actually going back to, I think this is 130. So it's going to be the gold, the traditional colors and the embroidered jacket. So
the traditional colors.
Mm-hmm.
This would be my first time with the OG colors.
Gold yellow.
How often do they go back to gold yellow?
I think every 5 years. I feel like it was that way in the 125th.
I'll just get another charity bib so I can come get one.
Come on.
Come on down.
You guys will still be running in 5 years. When it gets to like 345 qualify, I'll be in.
You'll be a 60.
Oh, that's
the way things have been trending. But I think those are really interesting, like, kind of back to my original thought. I think you're going to see, you were talking about the PS5s, I think you're going to see retailers start to flex their muscle in that regard. Walmart did that with the Switch 2. So if you were part of the Walmart Plus program, you got access.
That's right.
And those guys are so big that they kind of do whatever the hell they want.
That's
and if they think that it can build their brand, they will start to do those kinds of things.
I hate the hoarders. Hate them.
The what?
The hoarders. The people that go buy up a bunch of stuff and resell it. I mean, I guess it's hustling. Good for them. I mean, they figured out a strategy and they buy everything out, whether it's running shoes or gels we were just talking about. It's crazy.
You got to respect. I think I remember this guy who had sold like an action figure that was still in the box. He's like, do you know how hard it was when I was 7 years old not to open this action figure up and wait for 40 years? Like, fair. Self-control. Way to go. You sold this action figure for $7,000 or...
I am hoarding Legos.
You guys have experienced that, the whole Lego side of things, and how
I think I got a bet on this, but there's 4 Star Wars Lego sets. There's the big Defender. There is the Millennium Falcon, the big one. They just came out with a new Death Star. There's one other of them, so there's 4 of them. And they're like these big boxes, and they're going into the vault. I have the whole set of all 4 unopened that I'm going to keep. I don't know, I'm just hoping in 10 years because they're all going in the vault, baby. Come on.
What is that feeling, right? Like, I think it's nostalgia.
There's an identity purchase.
Well, it's not an identity. I mean, it's like, hey, can I make some money off of it if I can sell it for 10 or 15 grand in 5 or 10 years? Heck, that's probably what they'll cost. But yeah, it's like you think of things like that and you're like, oh, I've collected a set over, they've released these over 5-year periods. And so someone had to be consistently buying and saving those sets to be able to have that set to sell at some point. So there's a little bit of work involved over a long period of time and an investment. Hoping it'll pay off.
That nostalgia, like I think that's what it's got to be. I was looking at buying a gift for somebody the other day. It's way out of my price range. I could never buy it, but Sotheby's, I think the auction's over in 2 days or sometime soon, is auctioning off a signed ticket from Kobe's last game where he scored 60. And they estimate it's going to go between $20,000 and $40,000. But like the feeling of, if you were a fan of his, like of having something like that and the awe that creates. I mean, you walk into somebody's man cave and they have that ticket framed on the wall. Like there's a sense of awe as a sports fan, like because.
But would you just buy that for yourself, or is that an identity purchase? Like, is it so you could put it on the wall and friends could see it, or is it like it really deeply connects you and means that much?
I would buy that as a gift because I'm not that connected to him. But there have been things that I've seen that like I've thought about for a brief moment, like the signed, and you see these auctioned all over the place because I'm sure he signed 10, 100,000 of them. The screenshot of Tyson's Punch Out that Tyson signed. You see those at auction tables like that would be kind of cool. Just because I feel connected to that game. It was something we saw growing up. But I don't like, there's an element of me that I think if whatever it was I had brought others joy, but I don't know if there's anything like, I mean, I think I don't forget who has them, but somebody has the pair of original Nike waffles that were buried in Bill Bowerman's backyard. And there's also the pair that wore at the Munich Olympics. Like, man, those would be pretty cool to have. But I don't think I would want those to be like, look, I've got free shoes.
But you would have to frame them and put them somewhere. You're not gonna wear them. Maybe it's the symbolism of it, of having something like a signed jersey by someone that's no longer here. There's some symbolic.
I mean, I don't think any of us. I don't. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but like, I've known people who have been caught up in the game of proving the identity, where they would buy luxury items and sell them to get other luxury items. Like, like if you're buying luxury items, a lot of times because a lot of these luxury items, like some of these Louis Vuitton purses, they last for a really long time. Like they're really well made. Like the Tracksmith stuff that we wear, that base layer is $100. You tell somebody I pay $100 for what they would have called a long john shirt when we were growing up, they tell you you're nuts. You can get it for $10 at Target
for like 7 years and it's still in good
But
shape.
they're phenomenal products. And so people with money will potentially maybe buy luggage in that regard or whatever. But then you see people that like, it is at the absolute end of their means. And it's like, I'm going to buy this so I can wear this Gucci backpack. And then when that's not in style, when Gucci's not the hotness, I've got to sell that to buy the next thing so people know that I'm dope. 100%. Or they're driving the car that they can barely afford the insurance on.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things. I'm sure there was a time
that's
in life.
real. I think that's a real struggle for, I've struggled with that. I think lots of people struggle with that. And I think I would argue back to our original point, the marketing is a big driver. Some of it is you're going out and seeking it for an identities, but I think again, marketing's making it very, very accessible to buy any of that stuff, and it's more tempting than ever because you're seeing it, you're being tempted all the time.
And the government, the last thing to do, the last thing that's going to happen, because you talk about aligned incentives, the last thing the government is going to do is regulate that because they want GDP up. They want more people spending more money and not saving money. So
if $267 billion is being spent through social media,
the more
ads,
debt,
there's no way they'll get rid of social media because of the lobbying, because of the because it's a cash system.
It's a fair point. It's all tied back to,
Money.
I wonder
money.
how much of the sway happens. We talked earlier about the Me Too brands and all of the value plays on a platform like Amazon where it's easy accessible versus the bigger brands winning out. Brands are still, there's fewer of them, like significantly fewer of them as they continue to get acquired, but there's still strength in a brand story, and there's still people can rally around and build community around a Nike.
Yeah, but it's like there's not too many left, and most of them are resellers now, and they're having other people distribute their products because it's simpler. Coke never did. Did you listen to the Coca?
No, but I know
episode?
it's all regional, isn't it?
Well, the guy went out and he was trying to grow Coke, and Coke sold the rights for bottling for $1. It was a contract. So the guy's got the Coke brand and he's going in, all these shops and gas stations. He gave the bottling rights away for $1. And this guy, and he couldn't raise the price of what he charged. There was all these restrictions, but fundamentally he went out and found 400 other bottlers across the country and exploded it. Can I give you one other fun fact about Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
So have you ever heard anyone say like the Diet Coke or the Coke at McDonald's is better?
Yes.
Have you ever heard anyone say that?
Yes.
It's true. There's a special deal between Coca-Cola and McDonald's. They deliver, I think it's the syrup in like steel containers, like steel drums versus the plastic bags. And they allow them to make it just a little bit sweeter.
The mix,
they can be a little bit sweeter. So they've got this special sweetheart deal where Coke, everyone else has got to be verbatim. So if you hear someone say that Coke is better at McDonald's, it's likely true.
Nancy Chin used to say that. Shout out to Nancy.
Yeah, 100%, man.
I had heard there was a podcast I was listening to the other day where they were actually exploring that, like wondering, do different restaurants tweak the syrup levels, but only McDonald's is allowed to?
On the Coke side, I was telling that to somebody at a dinner party we were at, and they said Taco Bell has the same thing on the Mountain Dew. So Pepsi and their Mountain Dew product, Taco Bell has a thing that they're allowed to do with them. But it's a really Coke is a fascinating story. They could have bought Pepsi 3 different times and decided not to. But the fact they gave all their bottling rights away, they don't distribute anything, is fascinating. That's how they grew so fast.
I mean, that's an example of like one of the brands to end all brands. I mean, it's one of the it'll be interesting to see what happens. Are we going to become an economy that is just Me Too and that is driven solely off of value, or will these brands?
What do you mean by Me Too?
Well, what I mean is like we produce cables, right? And for us, our brand was, we produce cables with different types of finishes to them, right? Mm-hmm. We'll use one example. It's leather woven cable, right? So the sheath of the cable is woven leather. For us, we weren't focused on our brand early on. We were just focused on the product. So when that kind of became our brand. We're the woven cable. We're not PowerTech. And so what would traditionally happen, because we don't have any brand strength, the next person would come out, they'd make a woven cable and they just sell it for cheaper. Right. So there's your Me Too brand. It doesn't really matter. And if you go online and you look, especially in our category, you will just see these brands with names you probably can't pronounce that pop up, and their whole value proposition is, I'll give you an example. You can go buy today at Walmart, you can buy one of our cables for $7.98. There are brands on Walmart. Now, again, we have hoops we jump through, right? From a safety perspective and a testing perspective and whatever. There are brands now on Amazon that are selling 220-watt chargers and 2 cables for $10. And so these are these Me Too brands that they're like, look, I know here's the A, B, C, D, and E things I need to do to have a successful listing on Amazon. I know how to pump this up. A brand doesn't matter. I just want to sell 40,000 of these a month until this trend dries up. It's Me Too. Yeah. It's copycats. Versus, now if, as we grow our brand, which is a big focus for me over the next couple of years, and we start to build the story around our brand, which is creating these unique finishes and these unique products that you can use to share your identity, right? So if you're carrying a purse that's got a woven handle on it and you want a woven cable in your purse, because it matches, you can do that. Or if you, so whatever. But we're trying to do that. So then when somebody sees the brand in the future, they have trust in that, then that we're building these products with quality in mind and all of these other things in mind, quality collaborations and all these other things in mind, then that's what's drawing them to buy the product as opposed to just the value. So I'll be interested to see if it ever comes to a point where, because you have brands out there like Supreme, which has kind of faded over the last 5 or so years. But at one point, you put Supreme on anything. I don't know how aware you guys were of that brand, but it was a skate brand. And you slap a Supreme sticker or Supreme logo on anything, and the value goes from $20 to $500 overnight.
Yeah. Just like there's just a cycle. Like Champs became big again, right? Like people started wearing, like Champs was you know, it was Nike, it was Adidas, and then Champs became big. There's just this ongoing cycle. People reinvent themselves, or kids don't want what everyone else have, and so a new brand pops up all the time.
It does speak to the importance of having a brand.
Sure, because eventually in today's economy, it does at the end of the day becomes all you have, right? Because it's so easy to spin stuff up now and put it in play that anybody can do it. And when it comes to overseas, they don't care. They don't care that you have a patent on it. They'll knock you off in a heartbeat. And if you don't have that brand that you've worked, and it's so much more of an arduous task today because, you're bombarded with messages. If somebody delivered you a personal message about a brand, if Nike messaged you in 1985 and was, that meant if you got a handwritten letter from Nike, that probably the rest of your life you'd be a dedicated and loyal fan. Now, question everything. I got a handwritten letter from Nike. Oh yeah. So what printer did that come off of? Right. And it's so much more prevalent now. So you have to be that much more creative. You have to work that much harder. You have to partner with it's a lot, man. I mean, you used to be able to partner with just a giant influencer and they could push your product. Now you've got to find that influencer with the right 100 followers that gets the right level of engagement. It's crazy.
Can you, one of the craziest things that I've seen, and it may not be worth going down this rabbit hole, but when that whole NFT thing was going down, I mean, invisible friends and people were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for little, we're talking GIF images, like JPEGs on a screen, maybe had some movement in them. That just goes to show you the power of value and what people, these things are virtually worthless and we're going for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Exclusivity, if you had one of those, wasn't a gorilla, but it was Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yeah, you could be in this yacht club and you got connected with people. I don't know if our listeners have any idea about the NFTs, and they're doing NFTs for sports too. You would get cards and you're getting these digital files, and people were just going crazy at this stuff at one point in time.
Yeah, and that was, and there's still some of it, right? There's
people still playing in that world?
Well, it's more on the coin side, right? Meme coins are released every single day, but that goes back to the discussions we've had about gambling. It's all it is. Somebody launches a meme coin, they pump it, they dump it, and if you get in or get out at the right time, depends on whether or not you had made an avalanche of cash. And there's so many people out there that made a lot of money during that time, and that made a lot of money based on the rise of Bitcoin or some of these other coins like Ethereum or whatever. But that was such an interesting period because in certain instances, there was some functionality to some of that stuff. I think it was, I forget, it was one of the bands, and they were selling NFTs that, again, had some functionality. If you bought this, it gave you access to concerts for life. And
crazy, yeah.
And you couldn't, and because of the way they are on the blockchain, you couldn't replicate them. But
Didn't
yeah,
Peyton Manning do something on there? You got something, autographs, and you could buy things.
Yeah, Brady was
buy experiences through it,
and those made more sense because it wasn't something you could fake.
Right.
But then and you'll still see NFT projects pop up. I bet Gary Vaynerchuk, because he was live or die NFTs, and I think he still believes in them to a point. But man, yeah, I remember doing the NBA stuff with you, and we were in
That was an
Vail
expensive lesson.
Yeah, but they were like, there was a point in time where like, they were up $4,000 or $5,000.
I know. NFTs, man.
Very, very interesting. But it does speak to the whole scarcity thing and
Crazy.
So what's the right way to respond to this? I mean, what should we be thinking about? What should we be doing in the face of this?
Can I cover one more that I think is super genius that we all buy into, and then we'll go to like what we should do with it? The leveling up. Oh, you're going to be a diamond. You're going to be a platinum. Like they get you Nike. You spend enough, you get up to this status, you get early access to shoes. Like whoever made that up, wow. Like, getting your tiers up. Delta's great at it. Oh, you want to be the diamond, you get the perks. Like
that's your ultimate identity.
What?
So
Delta or just levels in general?
I think anything that exclusivity of levels based on
VIP.
real achievements. Like obviously it's fun just in games, right? But like when you have substantially contributed to a brand or a company and they recognize that, I think
every company has a point system.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to every restaurant you go to has a point system.
Casinos.
Yeah, casinos is the big one. But I mean, I go to Subway. You're going to put your points in? Are you going to order online? You get points. Like everyone has these tiers and you get better deals at higher tiers. Everyone's trying to buy loyalty.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think
Vegas
Vegas and airlines are the best. And I think Delta is, the fact that, I was talking about it with Terry the other night. I'm short a diamond and she's like, can you buy gift cards? I would obviously, I don't think that works, but I would buy them and then use them for work trips next year. So I'm just paying it forward essentially and then do what I do. But I'm like, this will be the first time and I don't know how long. I'm like,
what are you going to do?
Short. But it's like, it's crazy because here I am like even entertaining this, and like you said, the contribution to a brand to hit diamond on Delta is almost $30,000.
Yeah.
Just so people know, if you're just like using
that's
the card,
just flying. If you're using the card, you got to spend over 150 or 250.
If you're dollar for dollar, if you're just using the card, it's $280,000 you need to spend on the card to hit diamond.
We'll get Kay and come to China with us. Buy the China tickets.
You have to fly it. That's the thing. You have to fly it for them to hit.
That's right.
But yeah, and you're right. Like, but it is. I will say with that, there is definitely something to. I get aboard before everybody else. It's hard not to feel that way. It's like when you're sitting there and everybody's crowding, and then, and the funny thing is, like Diamond Zone 2 is kind of exclusive. You can't pay for Diamond, right? So if you guys have flown recently, they'll call Zone 1, and if you didn't get upgraded, which most of the time you do at Diamond, but if you didn't, like I buy my tickets so late, and they're like Zone 2, there's like 3 people. They're like, and it does. I can't deny it.
Have you ever seen the Key and Peele thing?
Yes.
Skit where they're like, it says Zone 1, and it's like military, then
people with purple suits. And he's like the last guy standing there.
And he was in Zone 1. It's hysterical.
And the access to Sky Lounge, right? Like that makes things.
There's some things out there. They've done a good job to get you to spend unnecessary money to achieve things. I just wanted to cover that one before we kind of figure out. So go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I just don't know what to do in the face of this. Is it just live in it and it is what it is and just keep buying and keep purchasing? Is there a way to, is there a way to fight this? Is there a position that people should take? I mean, how do you navigate a world like this?
I think you got to realize that for the most part, there isn't anything. Well, let me say this. If something changes someone's perception of you, that's probably not a person you want to be around. Right now, that may be a little bit different early on in a relationship with somebody, so there may be some, but for the most part, if you look at me, if you know me and you look at me differently because of the car I drive, there's, what I mean? Like, I'm not sure that's somebody you want to be around long term. So I think that's important to remember because I think that's the type of person who's maybe not overtly predatory, but they're looking to take advantage of you in some capacity.
I think contentment's a spiritual battle. And I think for me personally, absence is easier than restriction. I don't know if that came across right. It's easier for me to do it not at all than to have some. And so, like, being off social media and not having all those ads in front of me has obviously limited my buying significantly. So in the absence of allowing it to be in my face would help me, because I do feel like contentment, at least for me, is a spiritual battle. And if I have an addiction to anything and I put it in front of my face all the time, I'm eventually cave. We're all imperfect. And it's just a matter of trying to control the inputs.
Yeah, you're right. It is tough. I mean, I think we're all the same. I know I am if I see it enough. Like, I bought those Normatec boots. Like,
yeah, when I saw those, I was blown away by the way that you had gotten
I've
those.
been talking about them since the day they came out with.
I
like
know,
a year and a half.
but I saw them. I was like, dang,
And
I
bro.
didn't hear about this. What'd you
All
get?
I needed was my PT and my doctor to be like, "Oh yeah, try them."
Yeah, you should
and I'm
get
like,
them.
Done. They're Normatec shoes. They essentially do Normatec
For
style
the
stuff with
feet.
heat and stuff for your feet.
I do that stuff all the time though. Like I get an itch, I get access, and I make a purchase just like that.
I think from my perspective, and I think this goes into a lot of areas of life, the best way that I've been able to fight this is to always start with the problem. Wait until you have a problem in your life and then go find the product to solve it. By the way, Perplexity is a great AI tool for figuring out which type of a product that you should buy.
Sponsors the Joe Rogan.
Do they?
Yeah.
Perplexity.
Yeah, Perplexity is a great, like, I go there. I am a review nut for anyone that knows me. Like, I'll go on and look at reviews and research products for hours on end. And
You watch
I
that
found-
one guy on YouTube. Oh man, he's the best. He reviews tools a lot and like yeah, I can't remember his name. Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think, and this goes for technology, this goes for purchasing things, this goes for, I think we need to really anchor on a problem in our life that we're trying to solve and then go look for something to solve it. I think what's happening is like, there are all these things putting in front of us that they put solutions out there that are looking for problems, right? It's like, I think I could use this to maybe solve that. And I think that's where we really get backwards. If it's not a big enough problem that we're identifying it on our own and we're seeing that and knowing we need to solve it, my guess is it doesn't need to be solved. In most cases, that is how the mentality when I can get there, which is not always.
Well, you're not. I mean, I think you're speaking really specific because I think you're living that a little bit. But like, what if I want to buy a shirt? Like, I just want to buy a shirt, or I want to get another Pacers shirt. Or
My
a Colts
question
shirt.
would be for why? Is it like, do you not have Pacers gear
I want
to go
I
to
want
a
the newer
Pacers
version
game?
of it. I got it, but like, hey, they've come out with new city uniforms. Oh, I don't have a white one. Let's get that one. I'm not solving a problem. I'm feeling an urge for like it's an emotional urge purchase. I don't need a problem to solve. I think there are things that are problematic.
I mean, those would be the purchases that I think are I wouldn't be I would advise people to try and stay away from. Those are the identity ones. I've got to have the newest. I've got to have the latest. I've got to be the guy. Versus I've got this challenge, which could be, hey, I go to Pacer games 2 or 3 times a year and I have no Pacers gear to wear. Like, okay, I'm going to go buy a Pacers sweatshirt. But that would be my take, like for someone trying to navigate this and trying to not go completely off the rails, buying everything, I think is what's it doing? What problem is it solving in your life and how important is that? I think if you can stay in those bumpers, I think it's a little easier to navigate.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Anything
Lean on community. You know, like if you're thinking about a product you think is going to solve a problem, try to talk to somebody about it and see if they've had any. Because a lot of what I do, I know, is like I'm looking, and I tend to be that guy because I'm buying, 50 pairs of shoes a year, looking for the perfect fix. It's never going to be there, right? But like I heard this new marketing ploy from some guy who's shoe reviewed, and he says it's the best whatever. So I've got to try it. But like in those instances. Hopefully I can use that experience to help somebody do or don't explore some things. And I should be doing the same, leaning on community to help me understand if something really is solving a problem.
Financial accountability partners. Maybe that would be one. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I want one of those yet though. So, Okay, well, that was fun. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.